All right, after much pain, sweat, tears, confirmation I need a new laptop or new computer. We are here, all three of us. I am sounding the best I have in 2 weeks. I do not sound like I smoke menthols pack a day every day for the last 50 years. We are doing a combined show.
Yay!
It's Russ, and Rob.
Yeah, this is awesome.
And he's you guys can't see the screen, but he is on top of our Ripley pyramid. He's so Russ, Rob.
As it should be, right? Yeah. The youngest, of course. That's how it makes sense.
As it should be. As drawn by his mother, apparently. Anyway. Yeah.
But real quick, we're going to just briefly touch on, I mean, obviously, shockingly, the office season has actually been pretty busy. We'll just briefly touch on, there's some speculation about where Kirk Cousins is going to go. I just heard Chicago's thinking of trading the number 1 pick, which is really interesting. The speculation, and this sounds so bad, and I actually really like Justin Fields, but this is what people are saying, so don't shoot the messenger, is no one wanted Justin Fields, so they pivoted.
Oh, so they couldn't get enough for him. Isn't that interesting?
Why would you leak that?
Dang.
What is wrong with you? Niners obviously hired a new defensive coordinator. Actually hired a former linebacker from Seattle as our assistant linebackers coach.
Still that.
Hired Brandon Staley, which I've tried. I even told these guys I kind of wasn't sure about that because I just don't know enough about him. I only have the Chargers to go off of. Yeah, apparently he's really good.
He got fired kind of pretty unceremoniously there.
Yeah, so. He's not a good head coach. But I've heard he's actually a very, very smart defensive coordinator. Which I actually, if you're doing the pie in the sky, actually I shouldn't say it quite that way, but like if the ideal scenario, he's kind of the mentor to our new DC who's never done it before. Which actually I think is smart. It just, and maybe you guys don't. I'm curious what you guys think, and we'll briefly touch on this. With how Kyle handled the Wilkes thing, there's this weird kind of unease around the situation as a fan, just because it's like that went really weird. I don't know what to make of it, but maybe I'm just overreacting, which shocker, that could be totally what's
maybe
happening.
People don't like Wilkes because Carolina didn't want to I mean, Carolina's a mess, but they didn't want Wilkes after he was an interim.
I mean,
so I think
you're not wrong.
Going in with the
oh my gosh. Okay. It begins. I need to breathe.
Coordinator, I think, will help keep it succinct and consistent. I don't know how long that guy's been there, but if he's been there since at least D'Amico Ryan, if not Robert Saleh, there'll at least be that consistent thread and terminology. And Spagnuolo wasn't a good defensive, or he was a great defensive coordinator. He's not a great head coach. So, I mean, you might end up getting a guy that, once this next guy gets poached, which seems to happen, that Staley might jump into the role, and then you have a guy that probably won't get a head coaching opportunity for a while. And then you kind of like Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo is never going to be a head coach again. Probably doesn't want to anyway.
Yeah. Just win Super Bowls at Kansas City. It's funny, Russ, I did read, quite a bit of that bad press, quote unquote, right? Well, I've been in corporate America for 43 years, right? Before I left. And the number of times we did stuff and I went, God, that's dumb. Right? And it wasn't, so I'll just give you one quick example. Okay. You guys know I ran our what we would call a call center. People call in and go, hey, my copy machine's broken. Can you, blah, blah, blah. Well, we had a number of centers across the United States, right? For a zillion different reasons, not the least of which is we all merged from different companies. Well, when we got bought by Rico, they had one in Melbourne, Florida, which is just outside Orlando. It's also a retirement community. I think the average age of our employees there was in the 50s. Anyway, we closed some centers. We moved some stuff around. We closed our Atlanta center moved the whole operation to Melbourne. 2 years later, we were closing Melbourne and moving it back to Atlanta. And I'm talking to somebody at headquarters. And I'm going, you realize how stupid this looks to all of our employees in Atlanta? By the way, that stayed and got a different position, right? They went from call center to billing or whatever, right? They're looking at us like, do you guys even know how to manage a company? And the person on the phone to me is like, yes, but it's the right thing to do. This is too expensive. And I'm just going, I get that. But the optics are terrible.
Yeah.
The way I agree with you. The way the Wilkes thing went down didn't look good. It could have been the right thing to do. It could have been maybe it should have happened earlier, I guess. I don't know. But the optics in the league, so everybody else is going, don't think I want to work for those guys, right? And by the way, I think they hung the firing on the head coach. Isn't that a Lynch decision, or is it a?
No, it's a head coach decision.
Yeah. So my point being, but Lynch had to be on board. Otherwise, you're not firing the defensive coordinator without the head guy, right? Anyway, so my point being is it could be a perfectly legitimate football operations decision, and everybody look at it and go, "Oh, that was awful," right? Yeah. And everybody else going, "Not sure I want to work for that guy," right? I'm not. So anyway, I think you and I said I thought that it was the wrong fit. It seemed the wrong fit all year. You just had a bunch of athletes that did a great job, and they scored 30 points a game. When you score 30 points a game, you win a bunch.
Yeah. Did Wilkes get a position?
Nope.
I don't think so, right? Well, because they fired him.
Because there wasn't any. Like, it was so late in the hiring process, there wasn't any openings left.
Well, when you go to the Super Bowl, that tends to be the case. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
I bet you money, though, that's, with some of the new regimes that are setting up across the NFL, his name is coming up, right? Minority hire, has a pedigree as a pretty good defensive coordinator, certainly can say, hey, I had to run his system. If I was running my system, we would have been fine. That's an easy sell, right? It's an easy pay.
Yeah, maybe not though in an interview. Not throwing the other person under the bus.
No, but everybody knows it. Right?
Yeah.
So sure, you don't say it like I just said it. You just say, I felt a little uncomfortable in their system. There were some things we tried to mix together and it didn't.
There it is. That's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for the manager. The manager in
43 years.
Well, yeah, because if you're
instead of the football coach, it's not his fault. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're Wilkes, you have a legitimate argument because it's like, honestly, Kyle, and this is a pet peeve of mine. And Niner fans are weird. I mean, I know fans in general are weird. They're like, well, Kyle doesn't owe you an answer. I'm like, well, I know he doesn't owe me an answer, but we can still say as the coach. No. So, like,
Belichick never owed anybody an answer either, but everybody expected one.
You win 6 Super Bowls at some point. That's okay. But people, now that he is struggling or not, he's obviously doesn't have a job. You go 3 or 4 years of not being successful, then you just wear on people.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like Kyle which gets on Russ's nerves, being very blunt and like, I'm right. And like, no, we expected that and this, and just not taking accountability.
Right.
If say, obviously they have Bosa, but say, who's the linebacker that got hurt? The
Greenlaw.
Greenlaw. I'm thinking Kilgore, and I knew that was wrong. Say he comes back and is not where he was at.
Yeah.
Right. Say Funga comes back, it's not where he is at. They're gonna lose probably the guy who used to play for the Patriots, number 33, Ryan. He's probably gonna retire, I imagine. He came back to help. Like, we're gonna have guys missing, and we're not gonna be some stout defense with just studs everywhere. Yeah. It's gonna look a little different, and so the point that you start losing some of that, and then what are the defensive players? They're like, he's blaming the coordinator, but really he's blaming the players.
Did you guys
talk about this? Go ahead.
Did you guys see the reaction from the DB coach from the Chiefs? He took a flamethrower to the Niners. He was not happy. He was like, you held us to like 3 points at half. Kittle had,
but you couldn't stop them. One of 4 drives to lose the game. That's
No, I know, but he was pointing out like to act like the defense.
Well, the Niners only had 10 points, so hold on.
No. I know, but I understand. Let me finish his argument because I understand where he's coming from.
Let him say
it. Kittle only had like 4 yards or 4 catches. Ayuk, which was kind of funny, is it felt a little cocky, but I get, if you're for the defense, they technically only look at numbers when they're looking at film. They don't look at names. They just say number 11. But yeah, I probably should know Ayuk's name. But it was very obvious that as a fellow defensive guy, he did not feel like Wilkes got a fair shot and was and ironically, he interviewed with the Niners, so I'd have loved to have been a fly on the wall with that conversation. Because he was like, listen, at the end of the day, the defense held the Chiefs to 3 points at half. If you have this high-flying genius head coach of an offensive guy, you should be able to and I agree with him, for the record. I get what he's saying. I get that the Niners defense couldn't stop him at the end. But for most of that game,
the whole second half.
Well, you also lost one of your 2 starting linebackers. The guy who came in, they said he had a
number
40% rating against him, like performance. Yeah. He was getting
destroyed. I wonder if did that DB coach and Wilkes have any history? I wonder. Right?
I honestly don't.
Probably together somewhere in their history, right?
He was also another African American gentleman, defensive guy. So I think there's a little bit of that brotherhood going on. And I think Wilkes got the short end of the stick. So I agree with him. It was just a surprisingly blunt interview. It was interesting.
And look, I flipped you guys. Speaking of blunt interviews, for the first time ever, Russ actually said something about the whole Denver thing, and we'll talk about that at a different time. I'm sure.
I saw that. I need to watch that.
It was really good, by the way. And what was funny is, so the interviewer and I just Brandon, right? The tight end for former tight end for Denver, I believe.
Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Marshall's a receiver, but
but he's a big dude, right? Anyway, he goes,
is a big dude.
Man, you're a better man than I. I'd have been throwing stuff. I don't remember how he said it. It's hilarious. Just gonna say, but there's so many people. I mean, to Rob's point, when I put on the coaching terminology instead of throw the other guy under the bus. So many people that look. Someday I might have to work for Kyle, so I may think he gave that guy a wrong end of the stick, but I don't know that I'm going to say that publicly. So once again, it is a little eye-opening that the dude went on public communication and went, that was a dirty thing to do. Right. Here's the funny part. All the former players all think Russ got done dirty. Right. Yeah. You don't hear anybody in management in football saying anything.
Nope.
Right? Even if they believe it, they ain't saying it. I mean, did you see that they're swallowing $87 million? It's not just the injury part. I didn't know that. I'm like,
it's over 2 years. It's terrible.
Wow. Yeah, and then there's another video that I didn't watch, and I don't want to get all on Russ because we're not done with Wilkes and all that. But there's another video that said, hey, Peyton hated him from day one, and that it was never going to work, I guess.
Isn't it interesting this all comes out when everything goes sideways?
Well, guys, look, you know how I feel about I'm a big fan of people in sports and how coaches, players, how they conduct themselves always, right? And hey, look, there was some public stuff that Russ did that I'm not, I don't know Russell Wilson personally. He didn't know me nothing. But there were some things that very few things when he said something and somebody went, everything else he ever did was for the, it's almost like on what's his name, for the brand, right? It was always Seahawks right here, man. I mean, he was representing, right? And and then when he went to okay, real quick, when he went to Denver, it was Denver.
God. Freaking cameras, man. I gotta figure this out.
He has something to say right when he comes back in. So there's an interview that and maybe again we'll get into it more some other time. But Marshawn Lynch does not like Russell Wilson one bit.
Really?
Russ wouldn't call him back, wouldn't text him back. Like, they're teammates. Like, he was some special chosen child. Like, and there's just, I don't know if, like, for Peyton, it could be something completely different. Maybe he hates religion, and Russ is just too much.
Where's it right here?
But here's the problem that I wouldn't want to play with Russ. And it's not just that he's corny, but everything that comes out is that he's fake. And in the locker room, like, people love Tebow. Like, everyone at Florida ended up getting arrested except for Tebow. And Tebow is much more, if you're rating Christian people, which is not how we do it, right? It's either all or nothing, but in the sense of, who's greatest in the kingdom? Well, Tebow's probably up there. Everyone loved Tebow, and there was a bunch of guys who ended up going to prison on that team. Right now, maybe none of them said that they didn't like him, but like, he won games.
Well,
right?
what they said is he's genuine. To your
games.
point about Russ being fake.
Yeah,
Tebow was genuine. He's same guy all the time, right?
Yeah. So that's the thing with Tebow or with Russ, that, like, I just wouldn't want to play with him. He does these things, like, it's all about his image. He had the whatever his brand is, it's not
Dangerous. Is it
Dangerous? Or whatever. Yeah, whatever that is. And it's like, everything was for his brand. It's like, dude, you're already the leader of a team. You're a quarterback. Like, you don't need your own brand.
Right.
Peyton didn't have it. Like, Tom started doing it near the end after he'd won 1,000 Super Bowls. Brady had Omaha afterwards. Like, you don't project yourself to all this stuff, and like, you have to be in the trenches with your guys. And I think Russ, maybe it's his tie to religion or whatever, of like trying to set himself apart, but it's like he's just ostracizing himself in those places. And so,
and here's the deal.
I don't know why
everybody knows,
like
right,
him,
Rob?
But
Right?
Everybody did not like him.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. So in theory, he's been around long enough to know everybody. Most of the players that he would go and lead somewhere know him, right? You're gonna get him for a song if you get him this year for what, 1.4 million or 1.3 or something, right? But if he doesn't land somewhere, well, in other words, like a contender where they think, hey, this guy's still got talent, he can lead our team. One of those things they don't believe, whether he's still got talent or, to your point, he can't lead my team the way he acts. It'll be telltale, is my point, right? And like I said, I don't know him from Adam. He's not my neighbor. Certainly I had rooted for him as a Seahawks fan, duh. But I've also been pretty honest about who I don't think should be their starting quarterback now, right? And I was pretty honest about how I felt about Pete from day one, right? From very day one. So it'll be interesting. I think it'll be very telltale, to your point. I think if players go, dude, we don't want that guy. I don't want that guy in my locker room. Right?
According to Jesus, everyone's your neighbor, by the way.
Yeah, right.
So
you gotta love your neighbor.
But I had heard something, and maybe we can redirect after this, of Russ wasn't interested in doing the minimum, the 1 point whatever million, because then that team's not actually invested in him.
Right.
And so it's like, he could totally stick it to Denver and make him pay 20, or I think it's like 38 million hit and then 40 something the next year. Like, he could stick him with essentially the whole bill, but he wants some of the investment with the team. Again, that was conjecture. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. If I'm so here's a question for you guys who are both pretty darn competitive and have played competitive stuff, right? Not necessarily Rob, higher than Russ, but certainly been in situations. Man, wouldn't you want to go out and like prove it? Wouldn't you want to go out and go, I am still Russ Wilson?
My whole life.
I think Pat Mahaffey talked about the revenge of Russell Wilson or Wilson Revenge, or I can't remember the title. It was a podcast or his show I watched, a segment. But I'm sorry, dude. I haven't played competitive sports since 30s. right? When I was 30, not in the 1930s.
Pretty about the same.
I'd want funny, Rob. But I would want to prove it for hey, pay me $800,000. I want to go prove that I belong in this league, that I can lead you, whether it's Minnesota or it's Pittsburgh, somebody that's close, right? Somebody that's got horses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder if he's got too much of an ego for that.
That's what I was about to say.
Well, no, that will be telltale. That to me will reveal. That will literally reveal the truth at the end of the day.
You'll see it. People really attach their value in the league to how much do I get paid.
You absolutely. Well, every league, right? You know, every league. I mean, it was funny when I used to listen to Tom Tolbert, and he was talking about what they were paying the sixth man. And then this is when he was still getting paid from the Clippers while he was doing radio in the Bay Area. They were still having to pay him. All right. But he talked about, and I can't remember who it was, but it was a 6'10" backup white guy center that wasn't the sixth man. He was like the 10th man. And they were paying this guy $10 million. They signed him for $10 million. He goes, I think I need to come out of retirement. Because to your point, the worth of that individual, right?
Yeah.
The $10 million. I mean, even Tom Tolbert, tall white guy, played, he was a sixth guy a lot, right? He played a lot of minutes in the NBA. He's like, we're paying the eighth guy on the bench. I don't know. It was the last guy, Rob. How many they got on the bench?
Well, they have 15. They dressed 12.
Okay, so he was like 10, and they were paying him.
Seahawks 12th man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right. That may be, and that's sad because, I think you guys have both made a point that, hey, if you only take $23 million and then you go pay a wide receiver and a running back and a tight end instead of me making $46 million. I mean, I still think we can talk about at some point, and maybe not this week, but the pecking order of quarterbacks in the NFL. Go through 32, right? You don't have to stop at where does Purdy fit in there, right? Like Kyler here, local, right? I still like the kid. I would take Brock over. I
think that's why I want to leave that for next week because I really want one. We should talk about rookie deals because next week because it's interesting. I learned a lot. I didn't know that you're stuck for 3 years and then you get to negotiate, but really it doesn't actually matter where you're drafted. Everybody gets 3 years where you are just trapped. You're stuck. Fourth year you are actually able to negotiate, but the team can be like, screw you, we have another year, and then there's a 5th year extension. Wow. I think it's interesting to talk about, hey, okay, you have Purdy. Is he worth $20 million, or do you gamble because you have Kyle and a great scheme and pay another quarterback $900,000? So I think it's an interesting discussion because a lot of teams are making.
In other words, you think Kyle might go, hey, I can plug anybody in here, kind of like Peyton said. Peyton, and I mean,
that's
Peyton
what he's been saying.
Coach Peyton saying, I can plug anybody. I can make somebody not $87 million run this Denver offense just fine. Thank you very much.
I would actually say if I don't think that's – here's my gut. The only reason I don't think Kyle's going to do that is because of Lance and because of Garoppolo. And the annoyance of I don't have a guy who's always healthy. My quarterback's always getting hurt. Purdy did exactly what I wanted. I mean, we saw he threw it 39 times in the rain. So until Purdy either demands $40 million
or bombs
or what?
Or bombs, right?
Or bombs. Reason, I don't think Kyle's going to do that.
Body is.
I mean, we know Kyle. He was literally focused on Kirk Cousins instead of Mahomes, so he has his system and his way of doing things. So, but this is not a Niners show, so we're going to switch to. I'd love to show it, but I am scared. You guys have gotten booted from this twice, so I don't want to touch anything. I would love to show people, but I'm hoping when I get a new computer that'll fix some of these problems. We have a really cool spreadsheet that we're all looking at about draft analysis because we do have the draft coming up, and I think that's you kind of introduce what it is.
So what I tried to do is, we've kicked around the idea, all three of us, of hey, when I draft a guy first, how does he do? Right? If I spend my draft capital on somebody, let's just say in the top 10, does he stick? Does he start? So one of the first things I started was the the draft class. I just looked at 2023. And out of the top 20, I think 17 are starting. That's pretty good.
That actually is pretty good.
A year in, right? Some of them got injured or they'd still be starting. A couple of them, I didn't do the research enough to know why they aren't starting. Okay. But then I thought, you know what? That's too narrow a look. And I wanted to go, hey, let's look at the last 4 years. 2024, or 3 years really. 2020 forward. Take everybody that's in the NFL right now, right? They could have gotten drafted and they're gone and it wouldn't have been on the list. So I took everything. I actually copied it. The website I got it from is lineups.com. And I just did copy and paste into Excel, and then I did a pivot on it. And I wanted to say, or I wanted to see, hey, look, if you picked a guy in the top 10 in the last 3 years, what position did you actually go for? The number one was obviously QB. I don't think if I asked you guys without looking at the data, you'd have gone, oh yeah, if it's in the top 10, they're using QB. But 8 players were in the defensive backfield.
Yeah.
7 of them were cornerbacks, and 1 was a safety. Picked in the top 10. I mean, you think we got a passing league? I think we got a passing league. Right?
Tied with that is O-line. So, we definitely have a passing league.
Well, I'm pretty sure Cincinnati wishes they spent more money on their offensive line.
I wish the Niners did too.
You know what I mean? I mean, you got Joe Burrow, who everybody would say has all the talent in the world, and the guy's just getting pummeled. Right?
Well, 9 unblocked rushers in the Super Bowl. Didn't he have
the most sacks of any quarterback ever to get to, you know what I mean?
7.
It was ridiculous.
7 in a Super Bowl.
Literally, Cincinnati wins a Super Bowl if they can block Aaron Donald. Because
no one can do that, but yeah, you're right.
Well, ironically, Niners actually do it pretty good. In fact, one of our worst linemen.
I think they use a scheme, but you're right.
No, not even that. One-on-one, weirdly enough, Mike McGlinchey, who we got rid of, did a great job. So
wow.
It was
that should be on your resume somewhere, right?
I don't know.
So anyway,
I mean, the problem is they can't block Chris Jones, though, so...
No, agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
So then if you look at the spreadsheet and you just like double click so you can see who's actually in it, it does make sense. I looked at it and of course you could name all those linemen and I wouldn't know who they are. But the quarterbacks, Zach Wilson, Tua, Justin, Trevor, Anthony Richardson, CJ, Trey, Joe, and Bryce Young.
Yep.
Everybody would say I would have spent my money on those guys too. Right? Except for maybe Trace Lance, because we just don't know yet, right? I'd love to see the guy actually get more playing time and see what he really can do, right? Not injured, right? Losing your job injured. That makes sense. But then the other one that was kind of weird is 5 or defensive line, 6 guys defensive line in the top 10, right? And this is 2020 through 2023. So 20, 21, 22, 4 draft classes, right? And then wide receiver was 5, but running backs and tight ends were 1 guy.
Yep.
1 guy, and one of them was in 2023. I didn't look. Let me look and see who the tight end was. I didn't even look. Kyle Pitts for Falcons.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts. He was supposed to be like the next
pick number 4.
And Arthur Smith decided to not do anything with any of his talent.
Yeah. So I just thought that was a little eye-opening. Go ahead.
Want to hear something funny too? Guess the running back.
Bijan
Robinson. It's in Atlanta as well.
Bijan, same team.
Yeah, and they couldn't score. Well, they also didn't really have a great quarterback,
and he is starting, right? I look,
and
he's definitely, because but think about that. I guarantee you, I would love to go back like 10 years. I guarantee you, people were putting money on the first round on a running back because that was a different league, right? You had Adrian Peterson. I mean, that's going way back. But you had some folks, right? Even if you were passing, you had Marshall Faulk. You got, guys that came out of the backfield, right? I think wasn't CMC a first round pick for Carolina?
Yeah,
I don't remember what year. It had to be before 2020, right? Anyway,
yeah, it was after Luck.
So that was all pretty interesting. The other thing that was interesting, and Rob, you had some insight, so I'll let you jump on it in a second. The number that I couldn't see were ever drafted was a lot. In other words, outside of 262, these guys ended up in the league somehow. But Rob, you had a couple comments that I thought were I hadn't even thought of how they got.
Christian McCaffrey drafted 8th. Keep going.
Yeah. What year?
What year?
2019, 2018?
2017.
Yeah.
17.
Anyway,
That's what I thought,
but you were
16 or
saying, Rob,
17.
how they end up like maybe in this data, it doesn't show a draft, right? It doesn't show a draft position.
Well, one of the things that I think it is such a nuanced thing because one, obviously, it is a passing league,
right?
So which means you need a quarterback to pass the ball.
Yeah.
You need linemen to protect them, and then you need a D lineman to rush them and cornerbacks to stop them. Right. Also, look, there's not that many linebackers.
Right.
Right. Which actually are more. I think people are becoming more keen on. Hey, we could really clog the middle up with some really athletic and smart linebackers, but whatever.
By the way, both of these guys are listed as outside linebackers. So maybe edge rushers. I don't know Trayvon Walker, but they literally use
he's a rusher
pick with him. Right?
He's
so they list him as an OLB, but he's probably stand-up defensive end, right?
I think that's with the guy with the Jags, and he's been somewhat disappointing, if I remember right. But
and then the other guy is a Giants guy, but he was fifth from Oregon, which is another interesting linebacker pick. So maybe the guy can cover because he's in Oregon. Anyway, so
but one of the things that
were interesting.
I think about is with cornerbacks, they're not a dime a dozen. So when you see them, you got to get them. Right? Yeah, there's only, you could probably, I know on Facebook it pops up every now and then, and someone will list like the best safeties over each year, going back. Polamalu was in there and Reed and all these guys. There's not that many like lockdown corners, certainly nowadays where you can't touch them. But, it was Dion forever. Champ Bailey was in there. Obviously Revis, Charles Woodson. And then certainly going back further than that, there's more. But you look now and Jalen Ramsey was in there, and I don't actually think he's not worth a number one pick. He was to people at the time, but he wasn't the lockdown guy you thought he was. But you need guys to cover these freakish 6'3", 6'4" guys that run 4.2s and jump 40 inches. And they need to be smart and they need to be athletic. And all these things. So when you see them pop up, you have to get them. So I wonder if it's the time that we're in that those guys are, because originally your most athletic person is your running back,
right?
Because you can give them the ball and it's very easy to give them the ball. Now your most athletic guys are your DNs and your wide receivers. So then it puts more of an emphasis on the tackles because those guys have to be studs. And then you need guys that can cover. I've tried to cover guys that were probably college-level guys, and I actually should tell the story that I never told from our first podcast, Russ. It's hard to guard. Like, there's a quickness that you need, literally side to side, forward and back, but also you need to sprint because you're going to get beat sometimes. You need good instincts, and you need good technique, which is true technically for any position. But if you're just really strong, you could probably overpower a lot of people in the NFL just because you're a freakish strength person. So to put this in perspective, so myself and Jordan, who Russ has referenced a lot, Jordan went to college to somewhere in, I think, North Dakota. I think it was like a D2 school or something like that. I don't remember if he was a wideout or a safety. I think he ended up switching to safety or something like that. But anyway, like, he played. I did not. But I'm pretty good, right, without knowing as much as I probably need to and getting hit. So there's this guy that came back to Fountain Hills who had played college football. He was probably 6'3", and I'm not 5'8". I'm almost, but not. And Jordan's probably 6'1", probably. And so it's the last play, right? This determines who wins the Turkey Bowl. So I cover him close because Jordan actually plays safety. I don't know how to do that, even though I can get up if I have running start compared to if I don't. Anyway, so I cover him underneath, and I'm basically in his sweatshirt. I jump and reach. His hand is probably at least there. And Jordan's behind, also not close, and he catches the ball, toe taps, and wins. But it's like you can't. I don't care how awesome I am. You have to have the athleticism to do it. So when you see it there, you gotta get it. Whereas honestly, I think quarterbacks can get covered up a ton by what they're capable of. If you go to Alabama, if you go to USC, you play with all these best guys.
Right.
I could throw to some of those guys.
Right.
I go to Mississippi State.
Joe Burrow at LSU, right? I mean, they were like an NFL team.
Well, here's
what I did. Just so you know, it's going to illustrate your point, Rob. I expanded the years all the way back to 2015, just for fun, and I expanded the draft position all the way down to 20. So in the top 20, back to 2015, offensive linemen in the league today, 34 of them. Okay, defensive line, 30. DB, 24. Quarterback is now way down the list.
Yeah.
Right now, look, I get it. Quarterback is one position. Defensive back is, one of 4 positions. Offensive line is one of 5. You need quantity of offensive linemen.
Yes.
But it is still pretty amazing. In the top 20 picks, you're putting your draft capital on 25 Revises. Or somebody that can, the Dion, if you watch video of Dion versus Jerry Rice, you could sell tickets for the next 20 years and not get a better video because Jerry would beat him and then Dion would take a pick 6.
Yep.
Dion's jersey, if you ever remember, the front of it was never dirty. The back of it was dirty. Because he wasn't rushing he wasn't closing the corner. He was keeping your guy from ever getting the football. Literally best guy on the field, right? So I agree with you. I mean, Rob, 24 times since 2015 of guys that are still in the league, and I'm assuming the lifespan of cornerback is probably less than an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Kelsey's a tight end or a tackle, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Let me change that real quick. Let me go back only to where we were before, years-wise. I'll just go back to 2020 again, just to see what it changes. Because lifespan is an issue, right, for cornerbacks. All of a sudden, you don't run a 4.4 anymore.
You better have technique.
Yeah, DBs go down to 12. Cut them in half. But it is amazing. 12 of them are still in the league from 2015 and back. That you just spent that draft capital.
I think Patrick Peterson's probably in. Well, I don't know if he got drafted then.
Look, you know what? We can name the guys. That's the part that's amazing. I couldn't name an lineman if you gave me the first 4 letters of the guy's name.
Patrick Peterson.
I probably wouldn't even remember Kelsey, and you gave me KELC, and I go.
But he was a 6th round guy. Jason Kelsey was 6th round.
Patrick Peterson.
No, but my point being, an offensive lineman.
In 2011.
Mm-hmm. Who was?
Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
Now, real quick,
he was a stud.
Yeah, I got a wild hair. I was like, okay, I just want to see. And this is, again, overall, I'd love to go by year. I didn't think to do that. Total undrafted. Just total. 199 defensive backs, 99 defensive linemen, 39 kickers, 117 linebackers, 142 linemen, only 20 quarterbacks,
right?
68 running backs, 62 tight ends, 112 wide receivers. I'd love to see how that's kind of like moved.
Yeah.
But in the history of the league,
that's history.
Our data. I took the entire table. 20 total quarterbacks.
It goes back to 2004, Rob.
So no part of this actually surprises me. O-lineman a little bit, but I would what I wish I should have thought of this is to go year by year and see how they kind of
and it's move, also I would love to Robbie's point. I would love to pick a couple of those and see how do they even get in the league. Because some of the best videos, I don't know if you guys watch them, some of the shorts where they drag this kid off the practice field. It's college, and he's got a letter from his mom, or he's on the phone, and they've given him a scholarship. And of course, everybody knows. So cool, right? But I mean, if you're a walk-on in the NFL, I mean, dude, nobody thinks Purdy's any good because he's 262.
Yeah.
You're not 262. You're 380.
Yeah.
You just walk onto the Philadelphia Eagles training camp and go, I'm 327 pounds. I run, 440. I think I can play.
Right.
It's a funny thing where and you really can't teach size.
No.
Now, if I were more athletically gifted as far as speed and quickness, 5'8" can still play in the NFL for cornerback, running back, whatever. But I couldn't really. There's like 3 guys that can play in the NBA at this height, but they're so stuck on you need to be this height, this weight, this whatever, right? Aaron, and we point to Aaron Donald and even Patrick Mahomes is undersized, and so is Purdy and these guys, and they do stick out. But it's like in reality, most of the time there is a certain size that you kind of need. But then in the same respect, it does limit us a ton to see no, that guy's just ferocious, right? So there's the famous John Randall, when I was working at, what was that school? Desert Mountain. And I didn't have anything to do, so I'd just watch it, a Football Life stuff. And so I think it was John Randall's that had popped up. Well, he weighed like 247 back in the day when you had to weigh 290 really to play even an edge rusher, right?
Right.
Well, and the truth of this, I don't know, but he put chains under his sweats, like literal chains. So when he went in, he weighed enough.
Right.
Dude's in the Hall of Fame. So obviously there's always the outliers, and probably even more so now because there's so much more scouting than ever was before.
Yeah.
But I can imagine how hard it is to get to the league as a lineman if you play at, Louisiana Tech. And you're actually good.
Right.
Like, you're actually good.
Right.
How many people are watching a Louisiana Tech game? Obviously, word gets around, right? The coaches know coaches of whatever. But then they'll only take him in the 5th round or whatever. And this dude is mauling guys,
Right.
I think it's funny that as we progress, in quotes, as a society, there's stuff that still always falls through the cracks that, we think our system and the way we scout and the way we analyze people, we'll find them all. And it's like, no, there's actually dudes that are crazy good that I've met at things that I'm like, I don't know that I've met an NFL player. Actually, we did with Mom on the Dallas Cowboys, like the Dallas Cowboys backup.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
I didn't play against the guy, but I met some guys that I'm like, they're physical freaks. I don't know that anyone knows who they are, but if they did, they would probably take a look at them. Yeah, so.
I'm not good enough at Excel to make a thing. Because I'd love to go, per year positions and then but I don't want to do that.
I honestly don't even understand how you guys are looking at the different years, and don't worry about explaining it to me because it'll bore the people on it.
I popped in
I'm
a
also
couple
on
of
a
linemen.
Mac.
I popped in a couple of linemen, to your point. And this guy, Ryan Newzell, he's 2 years. He plays for Atlanta. 6'3", 301, undrafted, according to the data, went to Appalachian State.
Nice.
Right? The guy right below it went to Toledo, right? And Storm Norton. What a great name. My
Colorado State. Well, maybe this is why they suck, though. They got Central Florida, Boston College. None of these teams are good at football.
Well, it's funny, actually, because talking about this, one of the people who's really not big on, and it's not surprising, not really that big on scouts is Steve Smith. Because they're like, in fact, actually,
that dude is the man. For all
you mean the
people
wide
everywhere,
right? Wide out, Steve. Yeah.
Not the basketball player Steve Smith.
He's not on the list. He's actually before 2004. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Well,
Carolina.
and look, here's the cool part, right? If you guys will love him too. Greatest dad. The plaque on his desk, and I always
Rich Eisen.
He talks about next level stats, and I'm assuming that's a website. Next level stats. He's talking about Purdy and how great his stats really are, and they're like, why does nobody? And then he actually quoted Russell's stats he literally is number 2, I believe, in deep ball throws. Right? Yeah. They're just and they started showing, while they're talking to him, they show the highlights reel at the bottom, and Russ throwing these stovepipes right into people on the 2, right? Even in Denver when they won 5 in a row, I guess, last year. But anyway, my point being, his physical abilities, regardless of the distance between the ears and what he's doing about his entourage and all that, and marrying a, star and all that. But anyway, those are next gen stats that, I don't even know. I'm like, that is, like Purdy, where they're saying, oh, it's the knock on Brady that it was 7 yards to Welker. Well, it wasn't always 7 yards to Welker. Come on, right? The guy threw. I would love to see next gen stats on some of the greatest quarterbacks of our era, like Peyton Manning, Dan Fouts, Dan Marino. What are those next level stats? If the data was there, could they look at that and go, oh, wait a minute. Dan Marino threw more passes 40 yards and longer than anybody in the NFL history. Because it looked like it to
I would
me
be
when
surprised if that was the case, right?
Yeah. Or ball velocity, right? Yeah. Everybody that ever caught a John Elway, fastball, like literally has this little star on their chest where they missed one and it hit them, right? Because the guy threw the ball harder than anybody I've ever seen, right? He was a baseball pitcher for Stanford as well. Anyway, it would be the next level stats are just, and what they're doing on college people, and then they still miss, right? They still end up with a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere and is ridiculous, right? And I'm not talking just Purdy. I'm pretty sure there's guys in that. I would love to look at round 200, right? The guys from 200 to Purdy, who are they, and are they in the NFL, right? Because I just think so. We got to get this. I mean, we're talking about draft a little bit. Did you guys see, Russ? You pointed out. I went and looked. Basically, there's not going to be anybody that makes any money in Buffalo pretty soon. I mean, they were names that I know, and I don't follow Buffalo. Okay,
as much as
wow,
I know. I'm the one who follows Nick Wright. He's been calling this, where it's like they are spending what they do not have. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of teams that do this, but they needed to win it this year.
Yep.
Because they may not be good next year.
Well,
they may not be that good.
Teams.
They might still be good with Josh Allen, but they're one of the top teams to have this level of an issue.
Yep.
Most other teams don't.
Seattle did 3 guys, I think, is so far. They did 3 guys. They didn't re-up because they were just way too. One of them,
they're not a top. They're not a top team, right?
No.
But that's the hard thing is Buffalo spent the money on Von Miller off an injury, and now they can't pay any of those. You would much rather have Jordan Poyer, who's young, than Von Miller, who may retire in a couple years.
Right. Well, so you guys probably don't remember it, but there was a baseball team, and it was one of the Florida teams. I don't remember which one. I apologize. That I believe won the World Series, and then literally just
it was the Marlins.
I mean, it was Marlins. Exactly. Everybody's like
97.
They can't do this. They're freaking. Everybody in Players Association's like, "Are you kidding me?" Right?
They've been bad since.
Huh? Go ahead.
They've been bad since.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely right. Everybody laughs at Yankees and Dodgers. I mean, Dodgers paid $70 million to that kid from, or $700 million, right? $700 million from the kid from Japan.
Yep.
I mean, he may be the next Babe Ruth, but $700 million.
So he already kind of is the next Babe Ruth because Babe Ruth wasn't good at hitting and pitching at the same time necessarily.
Right.
And for as long.
So apparently he's just going to DH, right? Did I hear correctly?
His arm's recovering.
Yeah.
Because he had the surgery, so he's just going to DH.
$700 million for being a DH.
I mean, the amount of times they do 10 years, gazillion
well,
dollars.
And his is supposedly really backloaded, right?
Yeah.
It's like
he's making like
$10 million a year up front, but
He's making like $1 million this year. That's it.
Yes.
He's in LA. He's going to get all the endorsements.
Yeah,
and,
he'll be writing commercials.
Which means the entire Japanese industry is going to follow him.
Yep.
Just the way they did Ichiro.
Right.
And it's better. He's actually, Well, I guess he was in LA already. Now he's just with the other LA. What a good move.
Yeah.
Now you the other LA. So you're on the same time zone, or the time zone doesn't change, so the Japanese can still kind of watch your games.
Right.
But you're gonna win games, so you're gonna be on TV.
Oh, you're gonna be prime time.
So.
Yep. So to the draft. Quick question. So for the Niners, let's real quick on the Niners. What do they draft? I mean, where do they draft? Middle of 16 or 31st or something? Huh?
Yeah.
31.
First.
Now, how many? That's their first pick
in the
11. First round. They have 11 picks, but that's their first round 1 pick.
Yeah, but so the thing is, real quick,
trade up for something. No,
exactly
go ahead. I'm just thinking we got 11 picks. Trade up for something.
Well, so there's a couple really good channels that I follow. Steph Sanchez, who actually got a shout out from John Lynch because she does Nick Bosa impressions, which is pretty funny. And Nick has seen them, and he's like, "I'm not a huge fan, but they're funny, so whatever." She has a huge a couple Wayne Breezy, Brad, I can't remember his last name, are all Niners content creators. Actually went to the combine, and she has this. I'll have to share it with you guys. Excellent, like charting every player, expectations, all of it. It's awesome. The expectation is they're probably going to try to draft a O lineman in the first round. There is some speculation, which I find really interesting, and I'm curious what you guys think. They only interviewed defensive coordinators who were former defensive backs. They didn't interview anybody who was a former linebacker. And they have interviewed a lot of... Go ahead.
Sorry. That's my brain. They may not need a coach that needs to coach their linebackers.
Well, so it's funny though. You know what
they did have
complaint with Wilkes was pairing the back end with the front end, and they said, well, he wasn't involved enough with the linebacker. So it's kind of a weird, said this, and you don't see it. It's just interesting. Obviously, that's scuttlebutt. Yeah. But one of the interesting things is they're also interviewing a lot of DBs from the combine. So it seems like, again, speculation because we don't know. We won't know until draft day what they choose. It seems like they're moving away from drafting defensive line and actually focusing on the secondary, which I think is a good call. The Chiefs got called for 0 holding penalties in 3 Super Bowls. Obviously, that's not where you're.
But they were the most. Wait a minute, they're the most penalized team in the NFL for offensive holding. How does that actually work?
Well, I don't want to get tinfoil hat, but in big games they just don't call holding. They just don't. It is what it is. So it seems like the Niners are shifting to let's draft in our secondary rather than focus on defensive line, which I agree with. But I was just curious what you guys kind of think of that switch.
Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest, I think, if you look at it, one of the biggest penalties, or it is the biggest penalty you can get, is pass interference.
Yep.
So you got to get guys who aren't going to commit that penalty, where they get a free 40 yards, which I think they still need to look at, because it's still not a for sure thing that they're going to get it. I don't know. They need to figure that out. But the second biggest penalty is the D end or whatever gets to the quarterback.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It ends up being roughing the quarterback, right? So you almost rather, hey, don't get there or sack him, right? You don't want almost kind of like mediocre rushers to where
to go by them, there, right? Wave at them.
And then they just end up smacking them in the head, or they hit because they weren't there early. So I wonder if there's a thought of that. But I mean, you need it. I mean, we saw it. Niners didn't get home a lot, holding or not. They didn't get home on Mahomes to like sack him when it mattered. Now, if you can stick a guy the way McDuffie and Snead did, I mean, Debo can't get open unless it's scheme, it seems. And it seems like that was a pretty good battle that he just wasn't hit the times he was open. But, I mean, if you could get guys that can, stick to the hip of a wide receiver, I don't care how good Mahomes or Purdy or Allen or whoever is.
They're not open.
If they're right on you, it's a hard catch, or it's a deflection, or it's a drop. Or, then you try and force it, and the other thing is there's supposedly a lot of. It's going to be O-line, quarterback, and obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to go, but there's going to be wide receivers too,
Yeah.
and it might be an entirely offensive top 10 or top 15. So there's going to be cornerbacks available. So I think they're kind of playing that game where because they probably aren't going to go get a wide receiver. They don't need any tight ends. They don't need running backs. So it's maybe go draft a couple cornerbacks, go pay a D lineman that's a veteran, and then draft the O lineman might be all gone too by the time all the good ones.
No, actually, they've said there's it's the deepest O-line draft they've ever seen.
Hopefully they interviewed some of those guys too.
You know, a lot of hit.
It's the deepest QB draft, but let's be honest, one of them is going to be good. The rest are going to
crazy?
filter.
So funny you say that. People were talking about the draft class that Lance went, and they listed all the QBs. All of them are terrible. Now, I'm sorry, Trevor Lawrence is in there. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is terrible. So let me take that back.
He had an off here, right? He's the only good one.
Not a single one is any good. It was crazy. And we don't know Trey Lance,
Mac,
but so far.
Mac could still be decent, Mac Jones. But,
he's
he
backup,
might have the Alex Smith effect where, Bill Belichick's playing with who his coordinator is. That doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
And Trey Lance maybe could be.
Yeah.
He could be like maybe a Kaepernick for a little bit. Very athletic, strong arm, can run.
Minnesota's looking at him apparently if they don't get Cousins back.
Good for them because they probably shouldn't pay for. They're going to pay Justin out the nose. They can't pay Cousins too.
Well, here's an interesting question. And on both topics, Kirk has talked about taking a pay cut because he's like, listen, I got plenty of money. That's not. I don't need that.
He's made, I think, maybe the 10th most ever.
He's very smart
because he's won the.
That's true.
He's won the franchise tag battle twice with two teams, with the Redskins and the Vikings, and he is crushed, dude. Good for him, though.
So here's an interesting question, and I think we'll kind of end on this. I really do want next week also to talk Seahawks because what they're doing, I think, is really interesting. I really like the hire of McDonald. But it's like, okay, it seems like they're fire sailing to basically be like, let's prep for our. To me, they're drafting a QB. I think it's pretty obvious. It seems like all signs point to they're drafting a QB. They're lightening up their cap load to really go young and get as much as much room on the salary cap as they can. But we'll talk about that next week. If you were the Niners, and this is a question for both of you, you got Debo, Armstead, who's a little bit older and got hurt. And I hate to bring it up, but you have to bring up Greenlaw, Kittle. Do you move on from any of those guys? Because they're about to hit Debo, a lot of hard miles, a hamstring and a shoulder in the Super Bowl. Armstead has a foot injury that keeps cropping back up. He's 31. Kittle had a knee injury. I think he's in his 30s. Dre Greenlaw's coming off an ACL. Do you move on from those guys now before they cost too much and you can't get anything for them? Because I think that's an interesting question that the Niners have to face right now. Those are the
because I have an
big
answer
ones.
for one right now. I think you can't. Debo's already making. I saw he's in the top 10 for wide receiver.
Yes, but if you trade him after June 1st, it's only a $6 million dead cap hit.
No, that's great. But he was like $20 million this year.
Correct.
And he did not play like $20 million. In my opinion, I think he's great, but when he has to win tough yards the way he does, and he's not Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden was maybe the toughest man to ever wide receiver. Absolutely.
It's the same as the guy in Seattle, 14.
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, Metcalf. I mean, you tackle him and they just fall to the ground.
Yeah.
Huh?
Right.
I mean,
right.
He's a beast.
Crazy.
So I think if you look at the Patriots, they had Wes Welker, they got Edelman, and then they got Amendola. Those are all like same body types. Obviously, Wes Welker's I think a Hall of Famer. Amendola not. And then the other guy that I always forget his name, who's really good. Like you can replace a Debo type player. Where, running across the middle type, tough
Well,
guy.
didn't they rent a speedster almost every year? They had Randy Moss and they had this guy, and they always had somebody going.
No.
So under Shanahan,
but
Danny
1 year,
Green,
right?
Ray McLeod.
I mean that.
Danny Gray.
Huh?
Sorry, not Danny. They've had Danny Gray, who they drafted. They unfortunately Ray, the guy who fumbled the punt return, and I don't want to get into that, but it's just funny to me, is a free agent. Those are the guys that were expected to be their speedsters, and neither one has really seen a lot of play.
Like Seattle, they had Tyler Lockett, who ended up being, surprised everybody, right? He was like the slot guy, and all of a sudden he's just down the field, And I don't see the Niners got. Niners.
No, we really
the other
don't.
The other thing about Debo that I think is an issue, and I'll just bring it up, is the number of times you have that guy running the ball. He's taken the beating of a running back.
Correct. It's why he didn't.
I'm sorry, you come around the edge and it ain't open. He ain't laying down.
No.
He's trying to, and he's getting slapped, right? I watched Christian McCaffrey get some shellacking against, and he just kept coming back for more. Debo ain't enduring that. So you either change your offense, or you probably need to get it somebody that's got a fresher body. How old's Debo? What is he? 28, probably.
I think so, but also
to me it doesn't matter how old he is. Go ahead, Russ.
The other question is, and I'm not saying one or the other. Christian McCaffrey's up there too. He's not a young.
I would unless I got somebody to do it.
No, I know. I'm just saying that is going to become a question too.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what they can do with getting rid of Debo, trading him, is maybe they trade for a younger wide receiver or something, or fill one of the other holes of a Armstead or a Greenlaw or whatever, if you can, or just draft picks or whatnot. But I'm not saying that Kyle can do this, but with Ayuk and Kittle and McCaffrey and some of the other pieces they have, they could be just fine.
Yeah.
Right. They don't need a Debo. And I don't know that, not watching the film, of how much Debo maybe makes the defense slide or whatever. To me, he's not a guy that you have to slide the defense to. You just have to make sure you have 6 or 7 guys to go tackle him.
Sure.
Right. But it's once he gets the ball.
That's
but
great.
I think you can cover him.
Yeah.
But if he's open, you better be collapsing. But your defense can't be schemed around, well, in case he gets open over here, because he does make his money on those crossing routes, the deep drags and whatnot, where, I think a lot of people can run them. And as long as we're not trying to, like the Chiefs do it with some of their speedster guys, of giving them the ball because they're speed. So they'll get outside and
speed at the corner. Exactly.
But Debo is trying to cut it up the middle at some point, or on any of those stretches, he's trying to get upfield.
Exactly.
And at his size, man, you're just going to get beat up by 290, 300-pound guy.
Exactly.
Whereas a linebacker's 250, 240, 230, more 230s now.
Well, and even some of the free safeties in the NFL are big boys, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for a free shot.
But they're not allowed to do that. Whereas a D lineman can pop the hell out of you
and just land on you 3 times. Can you imagine? So real quick, this is a funny. So I'm assuming you guys both. I just happened to look at one of the mock drafts. They have the Niners potentially taking Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Yeah, I saw
What
that.
a name! I'm just like, wait a minute, hold on. Now, he looks like an elite cornerback with Alabama. He's got all the physical skills on it. But a name like Kool-Aid? Are you kidding me?
Dude, you better be good.
Getting an endorsement from the big thing that looks like a pitcher.
Did you guys ever watch Key and Peele? They do that exact joke with names. I'll send it to you. It's very funny.
Dad, you're gonna die laughing.
Oh no!
We almost need to do a reaction.
Call him McClingleberry.
Yeah. and they'll have what they're wearing changes with each one, and they'll be like this sometimes, and they'll be like, it just changes every time. It is phenomenal.
Then they have one white guy.
Wow. Yeah, that is just pretty funny right there.
So
Max.
So real quick,
okay,
do we think Chicago keeps the pick.
Well, hold on, real quick before we move on.
Oh,
Dad.
You didn't answer the other question.
Yeah, I want to hear. So we have
Dad's
Debo,
going rogue. Dad
Kittle?
has just changed the subject
Oh,
wherever he's wanted it.
Armstead.
How old's Kittle?
Hold
How
on.
old's Kittle?
Debo, Kittle, Armstead, Greenlaw are the big four, and they're expensive.
Yeah.
I believe Armstead's like 31. Kittle's about to hit his 30s. Debo's 28.
I'm looking it up. Oh, you already
and
got
Greenlaw's coming off an ACL. So if you're the GM, do you move off all of them? Only Debo?
Are they free agents? They're free agents. Greenlaw's a free agent with an Achilles.
Unfortunately, I do think Greenlaw is. Obviously, Debo's still under contract. I think Kittle's coming up on the end of his. But part of it is also they're getting expensive. So it's not even necessarily they're free agents. It's, okay, we're paying a lot, and they might be on the downward. So,
well, I wish I could watch some film on what in the world happened to Kittle, because I still don't understand.
I think it's Kyle.
Unbelievable.
I really do.
Year.
No, it's just been games. The couple games I've watched, I'm like, why haven't they thrown to Kittle? And they keep him in the block sometimes.
I hate that, by the way.
It's like, have him play like Kelsey. I get he blocks amazing. Get your backup tight end in there. Not so much that they know if the backup's in there that you're running.
Exactly.
But where he's not in there for 90% of the plays, and the 10% could be pass plays that he should be in. Make it like 40% run, 60% pass, and then it's like, it's a passing league. You're probably passing 60% of the time anyway.
What does Kittle make, Russ? Did you say?
He's expensive. Let me look at his contract real quick. Actually, that's not too bad. $13 million. That's actually not terrible.
Look, two things.
That's what Kelsey makes.
Right, exactly. So, one, phenomenal in the clubhouse. You want that guy on your team somewhere, and two, I think he's still got skills. I think you keep him at that. Debo's making, you said 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get rid of Debo. I'm sorry.
And what is?
I'm not Niners faithful, I guess.
And what is the other wideout?
You mean Ayuk? Ayuk is still not making anything, and technically has a year left on his deal, but is wanting to renegotiate. Real quick, Drake Greenlaw is not a free agent till next year, but again, coming off an ACL right now.
Honestly,
hold on, real quick. For this year, and it's not terrible. It's about $9 million. The issue is, of course, he may not play. So it's like, okay.
Well, and
that one's tough.
Months is an ACL? Months is
if you're Aaron Rodgers,
not an ACL. I'm sorry.
If it's Aaron Rodgers, it's 6 months. But if you're everyone else not on ayahuasca, it's probably a year.
So Eric Armstead right now, by the way, Eric Armstead has a cap hit of $28 million this year.
See ya.
So he's got to go.
But here's the problem. The dead cap is 26. So this is where this gets hard. Didn't
they boost it by like $40 million though, the cap this year or some ridiculous?
They did, but we are one of the highest cap teams in the league. So I don't see you being able to really trade much for him.
So you can't, unless you can get a trade. You can't cut him for $2 million.
And the other problem
that makes zero sense.
So then you clearly keep him.
Here's the other problem, though. Even if we trade a lot of these guys because of what we did with their contracts, it doesn't move the money.
No, right.
We are actually still on the hook for most of their contracts because we restructured, we did guaranteed. They don't want teams doing that and then being able to be like, okay, cool, bye. So it doesn't change a ton. So
I don't know that I like that, because if the other team's gonna trade for him, then it's like they're accepting that.
I agree, but that's one of the.
I know they don't want anyone to get guaranteed, so I think you definitely got to move off Debo. I think you have to keep Armstead with that ridiculous contract.
Yeah.
I think for you have to keep Kittle, and I think you still have to keep Greenlaw, because if someone gets hurt and you just immediately cut him the next year, as important as that guy is, you lose a lot of faith in the locker room. I don't think you can. That's one of the reasons why the NFL is such a parody. Is you can't to stay good. You have to constantly get better and get rid of guys like the Patriots did before they're bad, right? So you can get for them or not pay them too much. But the problem is then your locker room suffers.
Yep.
Right? But then if you hold on to those guys too long, then they're not quite at their capability, and you're paying 13 mil for an 8 mil guy, you're paying 26 for a 15. So, but I think you can rebuild those quickly. The Steelers are good every year. And I'm sure they want to win a championship. We've not won a championship either in a long time, but you have to stay relevant. Otherwise, a lot of these young players do not care about your team.
Right.
There's a lot of kids nowadays that are Chiefs fans because of Patrick Mahomes. There's Warrior fans because of Steph Curry. You kind of have to keep some of those bigger name guys, so not just the people coming up, but you stay somewhat relevant. You can't. It's hard to rebuild and completely rebuild and get a new culture and whatever. If you're going to be paying Kyle he had a 6-year contract, and what's the GM's name again? I forget his name. Lynch. Yeah, sorry. I kept thinking John Elway, but he played with Elway, didn't he? Or no, he played with
He played with the Buccaneers and Broncos.
He was a feared safety with the freaking Broncos.
So, real quick, we got about 5-ish minutes because I don't want to go terribly long. Do we think Chicago keeps the number 1? Because it sounds like they're shopping it.
So, I just looked up Walter. I don't know how I ended up on Walter Football. It basically said because they're going to have to pay Fields a boatload of money, they think they'll draft Caleb Williams and then trade him. That's what he thinks. And what's hilarious is he also, so Patriots with the 3rd pick, he says, Mac Jones sucks. That's his first 3 words.
They will not get as. It's a funny thing in the NFL. Once a person's drafted, they're not worth as much, which is a weird, like buying a car.
Yep.
Right
off a lot.
Oh, because here's the thing. Now you're stuck with Caleb Williams. I don't have to trade for you, or trade with you.
Right.
Now
I mean, stuck with.
Yeah. No. If they're planning to trade Caleb.
Yeah.
No. He said not trade. I'm sorry. Trade. Actually draft Caleb and trade what's his name after they do that.
Then I just wait him out.
Yeah. You definitely need to get that one right because.
Yeah. But it still holds true. The problem is now everybody's going, you're stuck.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, you drafted Caleb Williams. You're not going to
draft. Then
Fields. I'll just wait.
What do you do?
I'll wait till next off season.
Here's what someone had said. Because Fields is still young. We think he could be good, right? He was good in college. He's shown flashes in the NFL where it's like, they actually were 7-10 last year. And he was hurt a couple games. And CrossFitter, Badgent? Yeah, he came in. And anyway, and I think won a game and then lost a couple games or something like that. Anyway, they were saying that you let Justin play this year with Caleb behind him, gives him a little fire, either proves he can or can't play.
True.
It gives Caleb at least a year to learn, and then Caleb can start the next year. But if Fields plays well enough, you could trade him or trade him halfway through the year when someone needs a quarterback.
Yeah, you almost want him to do well, right?
Almost wait people out. And if he plays really, really well, someone had said it's like, well, then you have a good problem. You have what you think is really good quarterbacks.
That's what I would do.
And it's like, yeah, I think you still draft Caleb Williams. I haven't got a chance to. I really want to watch. Kurt Warner did a video on his son, EJ, but he also put out one on Caleb Williams that I'm interested to watch, of breaking it down. But if Caleb Williams is who he's supposed to be, he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah.
And Fields has not shown that. So.
No.
Well, and who knows? Because honestly, the problem I have is I don't know. And this is where maybe I differ from people is I've watched enough film at this point to go certain offensive coordinators, I don't care who your quarterback is, your quarterback's not going to look very good. And I look at the Eagles. I watched a ton from didn't watch, but there's a guy on Twitter, Honest NFL, who broke down their offense and said their offense is terrible. They gave him no options. There was nothing. Half the time there was no one open. There was nothing for Hurts to do. So it's like, okay, is Fields that bad? And this is why I do think GMs end up trading for these guys, because they're like, was he that bad, or was your offensive coordinator just garbage? And that's where the gamble comes in, because you don't know.
There's always ego in the league of, I mean, as a coach myself with certain athletes, I'm like, I could get them to do that. And then you do it for a little bit. You're like, they still can't figure it out. Is it now? Then you're questioning yourself a little bit, but every NFL coach, coordinator, GM thinks that they're better than the other guy, and which is good. They should, unless they're thinking they're better than a guy who's winning the Super Bowl. But yeah, that'll be. I think someone will. Fields is still young. He's still athletic. He hasn't had crazy. Hope he doesn't have major injury this year. If he does, then the Bears are really in trouble to get rid of him.
Well,
but if
or especially if they package the number one pick. Imagine they package the number one pick and then
they get a
Fields
bunch.
gets hurt.
Yeah, you're right, Russ. If they, somebody mortgages the farm to get that number one pick.
If they do that, so here, according to most people. Right, especially after last season, not this season. After last season, Caleb was who you trade all your picks for.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he's that guy, according to everyone. Right, he's Andrew Luck, he's Peyton Manning, he's unfortunately, Patrick Mahomes that no one ever realized. He's the guy that you trade up for. John Elway. Wasn't John Elway number one? Just these guys that you're like.
He actually determined where he went.
Best. Right. In the day. He's the best, and we have to get him. You don't trade all that pick for all these other picks because all those other
I
picks
like your scenario where you keep them both. I think that's
it wasn't mine. I stole that, but
I just meant Here's the bad news about the first round is freaking Arizona is probably going to end up with Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, if they don't, they're idiots.
No. The Patriots will.
No, well, they think they're gonna.
Are they number 2?
No, they're number 3.
Well,
and they think this guy thinks they'll go after Drake May from North Carolina.
They do need a quarterback really bad.
Drake May.
Mac Jones sucks, apparently.
I'm going to say Drake May's the
I
answer.
just pulled one up. There's 40 out there.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's available, that sucks because I'm a Seahawks and a Niners fan and not a Cardinals.
I would so if I'm the Patriots, I definitely get Marvin Harrison because I know he's going to be good.
Well, that's the interesting question. Draft need versus best available. Not everybody does that.
Best player available, right?
No doubt in my mind, Marvin Harrison is going to be the best player on his team. So, if you think
Jaden Daniels worth the pick for Washington? Just curious. Because they don't have
he was at ASU, and I don't know. I wasn't impressed, but and some people said that he loaded up on stats against bad teams, which maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But he was in the SEC, so I don't know. I think Caleb's number 1. And I don't really care about the rest of the quarterbacks. I know everyone's like, "Oh, Drake May, this thing, this, that." It's like, I don't know. I see his commercials here because he's North Carolina, and I know this is judgy. But he doesn't talk very. It's not even like a Southern accent. It's like, it's not that he has a lisp. It's just like somewhat tongue-tied. And I know it sounds weird, but when that guy talks to your team, are some guys going to snicker? Or some guys going to, are people going to buy in right away? And I know that's a weird, small thing, but you do really want your leader you're drafting to be this, clean-cut, bang, I'm inspiring, I can take over the locker room. His personality doesn't give me that. And that's only from one commercial that's, whatever about protection. He's got his O-lineman there and whatnot. But, I don't know about Jaden Daniels. I don't know about Drake May. Bo Nix played way too long in college.
They have Denver, which would be hilarious. Taking? Russ, you know.
J.J. McCarthy?
Yes.
I just saw Atlanta taking him.
Well,
Nick Wright talked about how excited he would be for them to take, because he's a Chiefs fan. He's like, cool, drafted probably a mediocre quarterback.
Mediocre.
That high.
Gets killed in the pocket, can't really move.
He laid this out. It's funny because he's so good at the cap, right? He understands it really well. But Wilson has these 2 huge years of negatives. He's not even on the team. So you draft a quarterback that's supposed to be cheap, Well, so they're 3 million. Well, Russ's is 38. So you're really paying for an elite quarterback. You're getting a rookie. And they traded all those picks to Seattle, so all their good players
They got fleeced, man.
aren't there. They're toast. They're gonna suck.
And I love it because I hate Denver. So
and Peyton's probably gonna get fired. Let's be unless they're willing to wait for this whole. Because here's the funny thing: Peyton wasn't a part of any of that. He wasn't a part of the trade, and he might get fired because that GM's a moron. They paid for. We probably should have talked to Wilson. They paid for Wilson 5 years when they already had him for 2. What do you do?
By the way, they paid Peyton Manning money for Russ Wilson. Come on.
So we can keep going. I'm going to cut us off.
We should.
Because I really, like I said, I really want to focus on Seattle next week because I think it's interesting. One of the mock drafts, and I would like to look at a couple mock drafts for Seattle. We can probably talk about the other teams in the NFC West because it does affect them. Because that's the other thing, right? We can say, okay, Chicago's going this at 1, Washington 2. Well, as soon as those teams don't do what you think they're going to do, totally screws up your draft board.
It's like the fireworks.
Sit back there.
Fireworks fall over, and then everyone scatters because it's like that thing's pointed right at you.
I'm just the one, and I don't want to restart it. I'm just going to mention this because I think it'll be important for next week. I'm surprised that no one has Seattle moving up to try to get a QB because of where they're kind of at. That really kind of surprises me. But
does anybody believe Geno Smith is it?
Doesn't matter.
Get you anywhere?
It doesn't matter.
Well,
they're 9-8 with him.
I think Geno is a great veteran that you'd want to draft someone for him to help because he's been in that situation. So you probably should move up. I know he'd probably be a little bit sad that he's losing his spot essentially, but it's like, hey, you're actually a huge part of us going forward still.
Drew Lock mentioned that Geno was amazing. So I think we'd be fine. I think he understands where he's at.
Well, he's been a backup for 9 years. It's not like he doesn't know how to do it.
Out of everybody I'd be worried about, I'm not worried about Geno in terms of locker room or teaching. Now, again, we're restarting, so I'm going to...
Right, I'm done. I'm going to meet me.
We'll do this again next week. Like I said, we'll really focus probably on the NFC West because every team has some interesting things they're going to have to really figure out. Because, again, if you think Kyler Murray's your guy, you got to get him a wide receiver. You have to. If you don't, I would be curious to know what the heck you would do. But that's for next week.
Holy smoke.
We did a lot of Niners, so we'll probably focus on the other 3 teams. Because I do think Rams is another interesting one. Stafford's old. So do you get a quarterback? So we'll talk all about that next week. I think that'll easily fill the whole show. But if anything, again, we'll do it again at the beginning. Any hot topics, anything that pops up, where we're like, hey, it's not draft, but this is interesting. So
when is the draft?
You know what? Excellent question. If I was a Bears fan, I would know the exact date.
Right?
When is the NFL draft?
That's actually I couldn't watch
April 25th.
Awesome. That actually gives us a little bit of time.
I think I may be on the way to your house by then, Rob.
You guys will be in the same room.
I don't think I actually get there till May, but we'll see.
But there's a really hilarious comedian, Tom Grossi. I couldn't watch the Niners recap one; it was too painful. But he does a hilarious one every time he shows the Bears. They're like, when are these playoffs over so we can just get to the real show, which is the draft? It's very funny. Do you have a quote today, Dad?
No quote. I figured with Rob he probably dropped a couple along the way and we didn't even catch it.
I'm still coughing, still getting there. Can't laugh or I start to die. But yeah, I think on that note, I think honestly this is really a fascinating. What? Oh, yeah.
Myself and Bob. I got to tell you guys, look, you guys' youth is right here, right? This guy right here, right? This is a fascinating book, by the way. I can't put it down. I literally was only going to read it. It's part of my goals to read books this year. I cannot put the silly book down. But
I'm not surprised. And then, you know what? Our quote for the end will be, what is it? I'm not.
No.
This is sitting. This is standing.
it's the end of the what Bob says every time. We're over here, Cordy, to talk about what we learned today. And it's where's the quote? It's Bob saying, "Hey, what did we learn today?" And he has a whole back end of the book is what he learned about the unfortunate demise of VeggieTales.
Yeah, it's not good anymore.
No, it's really not.
Well, it's a fascinating read. I would recommend it to anybody. I don't get any money out of it or anything like that, but.
Well, speaking of which, my goal is to get you guys for Father's Day the Take Your Eye Off the Ball 2.0 because I think you'll both really enjoy it. That book has been an interesting read for me.
I have a quote that is from when I think it's from Inky Johnson. That's what I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I love Inky.
Right, who we might have to talk about him at some point if you guys have.
We could talk about
it. We have a whole off season. We got lots of room for topics.
Man, that guy.
If someone has to convince you how important and valuable the opportunity is, it might not be for you.
Ooh.
Speaking of the draft, right?
And on that note,
the opportunity is.
We're gonna call it a day. This has been delightful. I'm going to be doing some testing. I think I figured out partially what the issue is. So the way Collab Camp's supposed to work, and from what I'm hearing from support, you're each supposed to have individual links. I think part of the problem is you guys have been using the same link, but I'm also trying to figure out it won't necessarily let me have different links for you guys. So I'll be doing some testing on my own. I think I might have figured it out, but we'll see. Obviously, we'll find out. I might even just, burn it to the ground and start over to get some of the bugs out. But on that note, thank you guys for coming. This was a blast as usual. I'll see you guys same time, same great place.
All right, may see you Saturday, Russ. We'll see how my back is back to being.
Yeah. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
if we do, awesome. Yeah, my son's almost done with his football season. We're handing out awards a little early, so if you would like to be a little early, great. If not, I'm sure Tim will be like, "Papa, look at my award." So
yeah, that'll be good.
Anyway, have a great rest of your day, guys.
All right,
everyone else have a good one.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Love you guys.